The first encounter. The stars glittered like distant diamonds in the infinite expanse of space as the Imperial scout ship, Vorith, emerged from the swirling veil of hyperspace. The transition from the dark, swirling fabric of faster-than-light travel to normal space was always disorienting, but Captain Varys had long since become accustomed to the subtle sensations that accompanied it. The ship's systems whirred as they stabilized, sensors coming online one by one, each flickering to life with the cold efficiency of the Empire. System scans complete, Lieutenant Zara, his first officer, announced with a professional calm. She stood beside him, her eyes focused on the holographic display of the solar system they had just entered. It was an unremarkable system by galactic standards, yellow star, a collection of 9 planets, several asteroid belts, and a few moons. But it was the third planet, the one that lay nestled in the habitable zone, that held their attention. Earth, Captain Varys muttered, as if testing the name on his tongue. The planet below them was a beautiful sphere, its oceans shimmering a deep blue against the white clouds that swirled across its surface. He watched as the scanner focused on the planet's surface. The data fed back to him in a series of clean, efficient reports. Primitive life forms, the majority of the population still relying on early space technology, no signs of advanced weaponry, no evidence of any threats. And yet, the Empire had ordered this mission. There had been something about Earth that caught the attention of the Galactic Empire. A growing world, not yet advanced enough to defend itself, but possibly ripe for integration into the Empire's ever-expanding domain. Captain, Zara said, her voice breaking the silence, the planet seems simple, primitive. I've reviewed their technology, it's nowhere near ours. They have a handful of satellites and rudimentary spacecraft, but no sign of any spacefaring military power. Varys nodded, his face impassive. Typical of a species on the edge of galactic civilization, they've barely begun to explore the stars, and the Empire's policy is always clear when it comes to such worlds. First, peaceful contact, then submission. The ship's sensors continued to relay more data, streaming images of Earth's surface. Captain Varys watched the transmissions with mild curiosity. His mind was already preparing for the next phase of their mission. The typical Empire strategy involved offering the natives the illusion of peace, a false show of benevolence, before bringing them under the Empire's rule. The people of Earth would be no different from countless other species the Empire had subjugated over millennia. Meanwhile, in the distant shadows of the asteroid belt, humanity was already watching. Hidden preparations, Earth's silent guardians. Deep within the unassuming asteroid belt, Earth's greatest secret lay in wait. For decades, humanity had known of the Empire's expansion through the galaxy. The sudden appearance of advanced alien ships in Earth's orbit was not something that had caught them by surprise. In fact, the Empire's arrival was expected, and for more than 100 years, Earth's leaders had been preparing for this moment, quietly, patiently, and secretly. In a series of massive underground bunkers, hidden beneath oceans, mountains, and beneath the surface of Earth's largest cities, the Earth Defense Force, EDF, was ready. Entire fleets of ships, stealthy, powerful, and fully armed, lay hidden in secret hangars, constructed with technology that was decades ahead of the public face humanity presented to the stars. These were not the primitive, barely functional ships that the Imperial scouts had observed. These were state-of-the-art warships, built for one purpose, to defend Earth against the Empire's oncoming forces. General Eleanor Roberts, the leader of the EDF, paced back and forth in her command center. The walls around her displayed holographic maps of the galaxy, pinpointing the vast reach of the Empire. Earth had been the next logical target in their ever-expanding reach, and she knew that diplomacy would fail. The Empire's offer of peaceful integration was nothing more than a trap, one that would inevitably lead to subjugation and eventual extinction for humanity's autonomy. "We've seen it before," General Roberts muttered to herself, tapping a finger against her chin. "The same pattern, the same tactics. They offer peace, And when resistance is impossible, they strike. Her hand hovered over a button, a signal to begin final preparations. She knew the time was close. The Empire's scout ship had arrived in orbit, signaling the start of the inevitable diplomatic encounter. But Earth was not unprepared. A message had been sent out to Earth's leaders and the military. It was time to enact humanity's greatest plan, the greatest secret that had been kept from the galaxy for over a century. The Empire's first message. The tension aboard the Vorith was palpable as the crew prepared for the first formal contact with Earth. They had entered a secure orbit around the blue planet, and Captain Varys watched as the holographic communication channel established a connection. He was greeted with a crisp, formal message from the Earth representatives. "People of Earth," the voice began, booming across the comm channel. "We are the Galactic Empire. We come in peace and offer you the protection, guidance, and order of our vast civilization. Your world has been observed, and we wish to offer you membership in our glorious empire. Prepare your leaders for diplomatic contact. We await your response." Varys sat back in his chair, fingers steepled in front of his face. He looked toward Lieutenant Zara, who was staring intently at the display. "They're going with the usual approach," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Offer peace, then subjugation. This will be easy." The Earth Council's response. In a massive underground chamber far below the surface of New York City, members of Earth's United Earth Council were preparing for the momentous event. The council members, political leaders, scientists, and military commanders were seated around a large circular table, watching the Imperial transmission on a massive screen before them. President Julian Anderson, a man with salt and pepper hair and a calm demeanor, was the first to speak. "They've arrived, just as we predicted." General Roberts stood, her tall figure casting a long shadow across the room. "We've known about them for decades. Our probes have been monitoring their movements. The Empire targets worlds like ours, primitive, yet strategically positioned for expansion." "We cannot show weakness," President Anderson said, standing to address the council. "We've spent over a century preparing for this moment. It's time to act." The plan was simple but deadly effective. The Empire's scout ship was only the first wave. They would arrive with diplomacy and then expect Earth to fall into submission, as had happened with countless other species. But Earth would not submit. Humanity's response was already in motion. Ambassador James Miller, a quiet man known for his calm demeanor and sharp intellect, was selected as the primary negotiator for Earth. He was chosen because of his ability to remain composed, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The first diplomatic meeting. Ambassador Miller stood in a small, simple room in Geneva, facing 5 tall, imposing figures who represented the Empire. These alien diplomats, draped in ornate uniforms adorned with the golden insignia of imperial power, exuded an air of superiority. Their translator devices hummed as they spoke, their words transmitted directly into Miller's ears. "Welcome," said Lord Voss, the lead imperial diplomat, his voice booming across the room. "We are pleased that you have accepted our invitation for peaceful contact. The Empire brings civilization and order to all worlds we encounter. Your integration will be swift, and your cooperation will be rewarded." Miller nodded respectfully, folding his hands before him. He had studied the Empire's tactics for decades, and he knew what would come next. The speech, the false promises, the veiled threats, all part of the strategy. When they finished, he stood up. The aliens expected fear, perhaps gratitude, but instead, Miller smiled, an almost imperceptible smile. It wasn't a welcoming gesture. It was the smile of someone who had prepared for war. "We know everything about your empire," Miller said quietly, his voice steady. "We've studied your tactics, your technology, your weakness. We are not like the other worlds you have conquered. Humanity is not defenseless. Your empire is about to face something it has never encountered before." The aliens shifted uncomfortably. Their expected response of submission had not come. Instead, they were greeted with the calm assurance of a species that had already seen their future. A future where humanity would fight and humanity would win. Captain Varys, who watched from orbit, felt the first pang of unease. This was not the first contact they were used to. The humans were not afraid. They were ready. And they had been waiting for this moment for longer than the Empire could ever imagine. The calm before the storm. The atmosphere within the Earth Defense Force Command Center was charged with quiet urgency. The latest transmission from Earth's diplomatic envoy had confirmed what everyone feared. The Empire's intentions were clear. Despite their facade of peace, their true goal was subjugation, as it had been with countless other worlds. But Earth was not like the others. Humanity had prepared for this moment for over a century, and now the time had come to act. General Eleanor Roberts stood at the helm of the situation, her eyes scanning the vast network of screens that filled the command center. A quiet hum of activity filled the air as officers worked tirelessly, updating the latest data and coordinating the fleet's movements. Outside the facility's massive reinforced walls, in secret bunkers deep beneath the surface of Earth's oceans and mountains, humanity's final defenses were silently mobilizing. "All fleets are in position," reported Commander Harris, the head of Earth's Naval Command. His voice was calm, but there was a noticeable edge to it, an edge that came from knowing the battle ahead would not be easy. The enemy they faced had overwhelming technological superiority, and they had no idea just how much the Earth had prepared in secret. But this battle was no longer about defense, it was about survival. General Roberts turned her chair toward the large screen at the front of the room, where the image of the Imperial scout ship, Vorith, hovered in Earth's orbit. A cold, calculating machine of war cloaked in the high-tech insignia of the Empire. But this was just the beginning. Earth's forces had watched it arrive days ago and had already taken their own actions, hidden away from the Empire's prying eyes. "We have one advantage they don't even know about," General Roberts said, her voice low but confident. "While they've been observing our primitive satellites and simple rockets, they've missed what lies beneath the surface. A hidden arsenal, humanity's secret forces. Far from the prying eyes of the Empire's scouts, humanity's true strength was hidden away in the depths of Earth. Massive underground facilities, built into the very crust of the planet, housed fleets of advanced warships, each one far beyond the primitive crafts the Empire had expected. These ships, crafted in secret over decades, were equipped with weaponry and technology so advanced that they could match even the most formidable forces of the Empire. In the heart of the Pacific Ocean, beneath miles of water, the EDF's Titan-class fleet was stationed. Massive ships, each several kilometers long, were kept in total stealth, emitting no energy signatures, no signals, nothing that could be detected by the Empire's technology. These ships were equipped with cutting-edge propulsion systems and cloaking technology that made them nearly invisible to Imperial scanners. On the surface, humanity had only ever revealed their basic military technology, a few outdated space stations, orbital defense platforms, and small exploratory crafts. But in the depths of Earth's oceans and deep within the folds of mountain ranges, Earth had prepared for the arrival of an empire that would not stop until it had conquered them. "This is what they don't understand," General Roberts mused as she looked at the holomap, tracking the movements of the Imperial fleet. "While they believe we're weak, unprepared, and primitive, we've been waiting for this moment. Their arrogance will be their downfall." In the underground hangars, Earth's top military scientists and engineers were making final preparations. A series of long-range weapons had been installed on the Titan ships, massive railguns capable of piercing even the Empire's most advanced hulls. In addition to these weapons, the ships carried specialized drones, small but lethal, capable of infiltrating the enemy's vessels undetected and delivering devastating strikes from within. Diplomatic tensions rise. While Earth's military prepared for the worst, the diplomatic situation continued to unfold with increasing tension. Ambassador James Miller, Earth's representative to the Galactic Empire, sat in a simple, secure meeting room beneath the Earth's surface, preparing for the next round of talks with the Empire's delegation. The diplomats from the Empire, whom he had met just days ago, had all left the meeting with a sense of superiority, convinced that the humans would fall in line with the Empire's offer. But Miller knew the truth. This was no ordinary negotiation. The Empire had underestimated the ingenuity and resourcefulness of humankind. The Empire had expected a compliant, naive species, eager to join their ranks and benefit from their so-called peaceful integration. But humans were not the submissive race the Empire had come to expect. They had seen the Empire's conquests, had studied their rise to power, and now, the people of Earth were ready to fight back. Miller's role was not just to negotiate. He was the eyes and ears of Earth's leadership, and his calm demeanor was the perfect cover for the plan that was already in motion. While the Empire believed it was preparing for an easy conquest, Miller was preparing the humans for a war that would decide the fate of their world. The next morning, the Empire's delegates returned for another round of talks. The cold, imposing figures entered the room with their usual air of superiority. Lord Voss, the lead imperial diplomat, wasted no time in delivering their demands. "Humanity," he began, "the Empire has extended its hand to you. It is time you accept our offer. There will be no mercy for those who resist." Ambassador Miller remained seated, his eyes never leaving the alien diplomat. The room fell into a heavy silence. Then, with the quietest of smiles, Miller responded, his voice steady. "You misunderstand," he said calmly. "You think we are weak. You think we are afraid. You've miscalculated. The first move, humanity strikes back." Back in Earth's command centers, General Roberts was given the go-ahead. It was time to act. With a single command, the first wave of Earth's counter-offensive began. Hundreds of ships, still cloaked and hidden beneath Earth's surface and oceans, began to rise from their concealed hangars, their massive hulls breaking through the crust and ascending toward orbit. These ships were equipped with energy shields, anti-missile technology, and weapons designed to dismantle the Empire's forces before they could even respond. The Vorith, which had been sitting in orbit for days, now saw the first signs of the unexpected. Their scanners detected massive energy signatures from Earth, signatures that they had missed during their surveillance. The hidden warships were no longer concealed. The first salvo of railgun fire from the Titan-class ships erupted in space, slamming into Imperial reconnaissance satellites, shattering them instantly. The Empire's command ship was still in orbit, unaware of the storm brewing below. As the Vorith and its Imperial escorts attempted to retaliate, the vast fleet of Earth's hidden ships was already in motion. They were no longer waiting for the Empire's next move. Humanity had initiated the first strike, and they would not stop until the invaders understood the price of underestimating them. The message. Run. Back at Earth's command center, General Roberts' voice was steady but resolute as she issued the final command. Send the message. Let them know that Earth is not a world to be conquered. Let them know that we are ready. Earth fights and Earth wins. A series of broadcast signals were sent out, encrypted to ensure that they reached the Empire. Across the Galactic Communications Network, a single, simple message was transmitted. Run. The Empire's scout ships and diplomatic vessels would not know what hit them. The Great War begins. The sudden flurry of activity in Earth's orbit was impossible to ignore. In space, the massive fleet of Titan-class ships, now visible to the Imperial forces for the first time, began to maneuver into position. These were no mere skirmish vessels. They were warships built to fight and survive against the most formidable of adversaries. Massive engines hummed to life as the fleet activated its cloaking technology, rendering them almost invisible to the naked eye. For the first time, the Empire would experience the full force of humanity's hidden might. Within moments, the Vorith and its Imperial escorts began responding to the unexpected aggression, launching evasive maneuvers and deploying defensive shields. But it was too late. Humanity's hidden weaponry, long kept in the dark, was more advanced than the Empire had anticipated. A barrage of electromagnetic pulses and railgun blasts tore through the enemy's outer defenses, causing the Empire's ships to reel in confusion. These were no primitive Earth defenses. Humanity's technological ingenuity had been lying in wait, and now it was unleashed. Back in the command center of Earth's Defense Force, General Eleanor Roberts watched the tactical displays, her eyes focused and unblinking. The first strike had been successful, but this was only the beginning. The Earth Defense Force had prepared for a war on this scale, but they knew that the Empire would not back down easily. The Galactic Empire had conquered countless civilizations over the millennia, and they would surely retaliate with everything they had. "We've struck the first blow," General Roberts said, her voice calm but resolute. "Now, we wait for their counterattack." The fleet's automated systems began sending real-time updates to Earth's military leaders, tracking the movements of the Imperial vessels as they reorganized in response. The Empire had always been known for its ruthless efficiency, but Earth's forces had one advantage: their battle strategy was unpredictable, relying on adaptability and human ingenuity rather than sheer overwhelming force. The first wave, Earth's response. The Imperial response was swift. Within minutes of the first strike, the Empire dispatched reinforcements. Several enormous warships, each brimming with advanced weaponry and heavily armored hulls, dropped out of hyperspace, their arrival marked by the crackling energy signatures of their engines. These ships, though not as stealthy as the initial scout vessels, were formidable enough to challenge Earth's defenses head-on. As the first wave of Imperial ships approached Earth's outer defense lines, the human fleet was already in position. The Titan-class ships, now fully armed, began their coordinated assault. Their long-range railguns fired in rapid succession, each shot designed to pierce the thick, multi-layered hulls of the Empire's capital ships. The high-speed projectiles slammed into the enemy fleet, sending shockwaves through the void of space. The Vorith and its escorts tried to retaliate with laser blasts and energy shields, but the Earth ship's cloaking technology and their precise, calculated strikes made it difficult for the Empire to gain an upper hand. The human fleet fought with the precision of a well-oiled machine, but the Empire, not known for its hesitation, wasn't going to back down. In the distance, the Empire's flagship, the Dreadnought, a massive battle cruiser designed for long-range strikes, launched a volley of plasma missiles toward Earth's defensive line. Each missile was a terrifying force, capable of tearing apart entire fleets. The missiles streaked through space at incredible speeds, their bright tails trailing like shooting stars. Earth's fleet responded quickly, launching countermeasures and interceptors to knock the missiles off course. But there was a catch. Earth's ships had only so many interceptors, and the Empire's missiles were relentless. The first wave of missiles began to breach Earth's outer defense perimeter, colliding with the Titan ships' energy shields and forcing them to shift course. It was a wake-up call for humanity, a reminder that they weren't dealing with an enemy that could be easily defeated. Underground war, humanity's last line of defense. While the battle in space raged above, deep beneath Earth's surface, the last line of defense was being activated. The Empire's first salvo had triggered a series of contingencies that had been in place for decades. Humanity's most secret weapon, the underground military bases scattered across the globe, was now on full alert. These bases, often mistaken for nothing more than research facilities or abandoned bunkers, were home to Earth's most advanced and dangerous technologies. Beneath the frozen wastelands of Siberia, in a hidden underground complex known as Facility Delta, a massive fleet of assault shuttles powered up. These small, nimble craft had been designed for one purpose: to infiltrate and destroy the Empire's most vulnerable ships. They were equipped with high explosive payloads and advanced cloaking devices, allowing them to slip past enemy defenses unnoticed. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Ocean, the fleet of Titan-class ships, having sustained some damage from the Empire's missile barrage, began a slow retreat toward the hidden launch sites beneath the ocean. These sites, designed to withstand nuclear impacts, were built deep into the ocean floor and were protected by a vast array of underwater drones and sentries. The fleet's retreat wasn't a sign of surrender, it was a strategic repositioning. Earth's war was not going to be won by direct combat alone. It was a war of endurance, deception, and human resolve. In the heart of Africa, at another underground facility, human scientists worked around the clock to harness the energy weapons they had developed in secret. These weapons, capable of draining energy from Imperial ships' shields and weapons systems, were now being tested on a live target for the first time. As a squadron of attack drones launched from the facility, they were intercepted by Empire's drone forces, leading to an intense firefight that raged across the sky. The human drones, though smaller and less advanced than the Empire's, fought back with a tenacity that was unmatched. Humanity's resolve, no surrender. Back in space, the battle between the Empire and Earth's forces intensified. The Vorith launched another strike, this time with more precision and greater firepower. Yet the human fleet, battered but unbroken, retaliated with fierce determination. The battle was now an all-out war, and every move counted. Do they realize yet? Commander Harris of Earth's military operations said, watching the live footage of the Imperial fleet's movements. Do they understand that they've just woken a sleeping giant? General Roberts smiled grimly. They're about to find out. For humanity, this was a fight for survival, but it was also about pride. They had been underestimated for too long. The Empire had mistaken their patience for weakness. The time for diplomacy and negotiations was over. Now, humanity's message was clear. Earth was not a planet to be conquered. It was a planet that would fight back. The first phase of the war was drawing to a close, and humanity had already proven itself more than capable of holding its ground. But the true battle was still ahead. The Empire would not easily concede defeat, and the coming days would determine the fate of the entire human race. As Earth's fleet prepared for the next phase of the conflict, one thing was certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. They would defend their world to the very last. The tide turns, humanity's counteroffensive. The battle for Earth had now escalated into a conflict that spanned the stars, but the Empire had made one fatal miscalculation. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and innovate in the face of overwhelming odds. The first phase of the war had been brutal, but Earth's resolve was beginning to show. The Empire had come expecting a quick and easy conquest, but instead, they had found themselves locked in a war of attrition with a species that had fought against extinction for millennia, a species that refused to surrender. In space, the Titan-class ships, battered but still operational, rallied after the devastating missile bombardments from the Imperial fleet. The human forces had taken heavy casualties, but they weren't finished. Earth's fleet, hidden in the asteroid belt and cloaked in the shadows, began to regroup for their next offensive. They knew they were fighting against a superior enemy, but Earth's warships were more than just ships. They were symbols of human ingenuity, and they carried the hopes and the future of the human race. The strategic shift. General Eleanor Roberts stood before a holographic map of the battle theater, her face stern and focused. The tides of war were shifting, and now it was time for humanity to take the fight to the enemy. For the last few weeks, Earth's forces had been on the defensive, weathering the Empire's relentless barrage. But now the time had come to strike back. "We've done enough damage to their fleet," Roberts said, tapping a control panel to zoom in on the positions of the Imperial ships. "They're overextended. Their forces are spread thin. Now is our chance to hit them where it hurts." The humans had learned from their initial skirmishes with the Empire. They had studied the enemy's tactics, their weaknesses, and their patterns. The Empire was an organization built on control and order, and like many empires before them, they suffered from a certain hubris. The Empire believed it had seen all that the universe had to offer. It believed its technological superiority and centuries of conquest made it invincible. But the humans had something that the Empire did not: creativity, resourcefulness, and the willingness to adapt. Humanity had always been a species that thrived on innovation, and now they would use that very trait to turn the war in their favor. The first major victory. The first counteroffensive came in the form of a surprise attack on the Empire's largest battleship, the Dreadnought. This ship, once thought to be indestructible, had been caught in a precarious position. The Empire had failed to account for the human ability to deploy stealth tactics, and Earth's fleet, cloaked by advanced technologies, moved into positions silently. In the dead of space, Earth's warships unleashed a devastating barrage of missiles, all aimed at the vulnerable weak points of the Dreadnought. With pinpoint accuracy, Earth's fleet targeted the ship's propulsion systems, weapons platforms, and shield generators. The Dreadnought's shields, while strong, were not enough to withstand the full force of humanity's relentless attack. Within moments, massive explosions ripped through the ship's outer hull, sending debris scattering in every direction. "Direct hit on their engines," reported Lieutenant Carson, watching the live feed from his station. "They're losing power. They won't be able to flee." The Empire's flagship, crippled and unable to fight back, now drifted in space, completely at Earth's mercy. It was a momentous victory for humanity, a declaration to the Empire that they had underestimated their opponents. But the war was far from over. The Empire's remaining ships would retaliate with fury, and Earth's forces knew that their hard-won victory would only make the Empire more determined to crush them. Rising from the ashes. Back on Earth, the news of the Dreadnought's destruction spread like wildfire. The victory gave humanity a much-needed boost, but it also raised the stakes. If the Empire had underestimated humanity once, they would not make that mistake again. Earth's leaders knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger struggle, but it was a crucial turning point. Humanity's resilience was on full display as the war expanded. People from every corner of the globe rallied together, volunteering for the war effort. The civilians who had once lived in peaceful oblivion now found themselves on the front lines. Scientists, engineers, and even teachers turned their skills toward developing new technologies for the war effort. Earth's entire society mobilized, and the collective will of humanity became its most powerful weapon. In the weeks following the destruction of the Dreadnought, the human resistance began to see more successes. The Titan-class ships were bolstered by a new class of stealth attack craft, which were designed to infiltrate and sabotage Imperial command stations. These ships, known as the Spectre class, could slip past enemy lines undetected and disable critical Imperial infrastructure. One such Spectre-class ship, the Nightblade, infiltrated an Imperial supply station on a distant moon, disrupting the Empire's supply chains and cutting off vital resources. The Empire's forces, now stretched thin and lacking the resources to mount a sustained offensive, began to falter. But it wasn't just Earth's technological advancements that were turning the tide. The humans' willingness to fight, that unshakable belief in their right to exist, was something the Empire could not easily suppress. The war had evolved into a battle of wills, one in which humanity's determination was its greatest strength. The Empire strikes back. Despite the setbacks, the Empire was not about to admit defeat. Their forces regrouped, and soon a new wave of reinforcements arrived from the far reaches of the galaxy. These ships, larger and more powerful than anything the Empire had previously sent to Earth, carried the full weight of Imperial authority. They were dispatched to crush the human rebellion once and for all. The new Imperial forces, led by Admiral Varnax, a seasoned veteran of countless campaigns, immediately launched a counteroffensive. Their first target was Earth itself. "We will end this insurrection," Admiral Varnax declared, his voice cold and calculating. "The humans may have struck a temporary blow, but they will be crushed beneath the might of the Empire." The Empire's fleet moved into position, and with it came an overwhelming barrage of weapons fire. The skies over Earth darkened as the first wave of Imperial assault ships arrived, their weapons firing with deadly precision. Yet, even as the Empire unleashed its fury, Earth's defense systems, both in space and on the ground, held firm. The humans knew that this would be their most difficult battle yet, but they were ready. They had fought to protect their world once before, and they would do it again. Humanity's will to survive was now stronger than ever. The Empire's superiority in numbers and technology was no longer enough to intimidate them. The first major victory had ignited a fire in the hearts of every human who fought, and the entire planet had united in a common cause. Earth's war for survival was now more than a conflict. It was a declaration that humanity would not go quietly into the night. The gathering storm. As the two forces prepared for their next encounter, the fate of the war hung in the balance. The Empire's military might was formidable, but humanity had something the Empire lacked: unity. The humans had come together across borders and nations to fight a common enemy. They had become a force unlike any the Empire had faced before. Now, they would use that strength to push the Empire to the brink. The next battle would be the one that determined it all. Would humanity stand tall, or would the Empire's crushing might finally put an end to Earth's fight for freedom? Only time would tell, but for the first time in the war, the humans held the upper hand. They had struck the first blow, dealt a devastating defeat, and sent the Empire reeling. Now the storm was gathering, and humanity was ready to meet it head-on. The Empire's last gamble, humanity's counterattack. The war had stretched on for months, and what began as a small resistance against an overwhelmingly powerful force had evolved into a full-scale conflict. Humanity, against all odds, had managed to not only survive but adapt, strike back, and disrupt the Empire's plans. Yet, as the fighting intensified, so did the stakes. The Empire was not a foe easily defeated, and they had one last trick up their sleeves. After the destruction of the Dreadnought and the devastating blow to the Empire's logistical networks, the Empire had been forced into retreat. But they were not going to give up their prize so easily. The Galactic Empire was vast, with fleets scattered across the galaxy, and now, for the first time, the Empire unleashed its full might on Earth in a desperate, all-out assault. Earth's defenses were stretched thin, and every last human military asset was being put into play. General Eleanor Roberts stood at the command center of the Earth Defense Force's central headquarters in New York, her face drawn and tired, but determined. Around her, the mood was grim, but a quiet sense of resolve filled the room. They knew this would be their greatest challenge yet, but they had faced worse. The clock was ticking. The Emperor's wrath. The Imperial Emperor, seated on his throne aboard his flagship, the pride of the Empire, observed the human resistance with cold detachment. He had underestimated Earth once, but he would not make that mistake again. The failure to crush humanity in the earlier stages of the war had been a setback, but the Empire's resources were now fully mobilized. The Emperor's fleet, a fleet larger than anything humanity had ever seen, was heading toward Earth. The humans would not survive this time. "I want Earth wiped from the face of the galaxy," the Emperor's voice echoed in the chamber, calm but brimming with malice. "No mercy, no quarter. Do whatever it takes to break them." His orders were absolute. His fleet would land on Earth with fire and fury, decimating anything that stood in their path. But the Emperor had failed to realize that humanity was no longer the fractured, vulnerable species it had once been. In fact, it had become the most dangerous thing the Empire had ever faced, an enemy with nothing left to lose. The human resolve. Earth's fleet was now fully mobilized, and for the first time since the war began, humanity had unified under a single banner. Gone were the days of isolated countries and fractured alliances. The war for Earth's survival had forced the human race to cast aside all divisions and work together. All nations, from the United States to China, from the African Union to the European Federation, had combined their resources to defend their world. Humanity's ingenuity had also reached new heights. The Spectre-class stealth ships, now used in concert with the Titan-class battleships, were humanity's ace in the hole. These ships could slip through the Empire's sensors, unseen and unheard, before unleashing devastating strikes on the enemy's key positions. They were not just tools of war, they were symbols of human determination. But it wasn't just the ships and the technology that set humanity apart, it was their resolve. Earth's soldiers, pilots, engineers, and civilians had all come to the stark realization that they were fighting for their very existence. The knowledge that their world and way of life were at stake brought out something deep within them, an unyielding will to survive and win. It was a fire that the Empire would never understand. They had fought for conquest, for power, but the humans fought for their home. The plan. The plan, devised by General Roberts and her closest advisors, was bold and risky. They had learned much from their encounters with the Empire, including how to disrupt the advanced technology the Empire used for surveillance and communication. Humanity's plan was simple but effective: deceive the Empire into thinking Earth's defenses were far weaker than they actually were. The Titan-class ships would launch a series of feints and decoy operations, drawing the Empire's attention to the far edges of the solar system. Meanwhile, Earth's true fleet, the Spectre-class ships and a hidden fleet of new warships, would strike at the heart of the Empire's invasion force. They would cripple the Empire's flagship and its command structure, sending the enemy fleet into disarray. Roberts looked over the holographic map one last time before giving the command. It's now or never. Launch the decoys. Everyone else, move into position. The great battle, Earth's last stand, the final confrontation began at the outer edges of Earth's solar system. A massive Imperial fleet, led by the Emperor's flagship, the pride of the Empire, dropped out of hyperspace and began their approach toward Earth. Thousands of warships, supported by smaller ships and landing forces, advanced like a tidal wave. Earth's last defense seemed hopelessly outmatched. The Empire's fleet was vast, yet humanity's plan had already begun. The decoy ships, strategically placed to mimic the human fleet's composition and movements, drew the majority of the Imperial forces away from the planet. While the Empire's fleet pursued the decoys into deep space, the real attack began. At the heart of Earth's defense, hidden in the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon, the human fleet assembled, silent and deadly. The Spectre-class ships, as well as newly constructed warships, silently drifted into formation, ready to strike. These ships had been modified with the latest human technologies, from advanced cloaking devices to high-powered disruptor weapons capable of taking down the Empire's most advanced shields. The first strike came without warning. A Spectre-class ship slipped past the Empire's outer defenses, sending a volley of missiles toward the pride of the Empire. The missiles, guided by human ingenuity and precision, struck the flagship's vulnerable underbelly. The explosions were deafening, sending ripples of energy through the Imperial fleet. Human warships, now free to engage, poured fire into the Imperial fleet with relentless precision. The Titan-class ships, in their full glory, took center stage in the battle, launching a barrage of torpedoes and energy beams that tore through the enemy vessels. Earth's fleet, with their superior tactics and technology, began to dismantle the once feared Imperial forces one by one. In space, a brutal battle raged, ship against ship, humanity's unwavering will against the Empire's overwhelming firepower. The clash was fierce, but humanity had one thing that the Empire lacked: a purpose. The soldiers and pilots fighting for Earth knew that this was their home. They fought not for glory or conquest, but for survival. The turning tide. As the battle unfolded, the Empire's fleet began to falter. Their flagship, now severely damaged, struggled to stay afloat. The command structure had been shattered, and many of the smaller Imperial ships, cut off from their command, began to retreat in confusion. General Roberts' voice echoed across the communications network. "Keep up the pressure. We've got them on the ropes. No surrender. This is our world." The tides were turning. Earth's fleet, with the Empire's command structure in disarray, began to capitalize on the Empire's disorganization. The remaining Imperial ships, many already damaged, began to retreat, but humanity did not allow them to escape. Earth's final push was brutal. The remaining Imperial forces were pursued into deep space, forced to fight for every inch they gained. The humans had no intention of letting the Empire retreat. This was their one chance to ensure that their world would never again be under threat. Victory and the future of Earth. Hours passed, and the battle raged on, but it was clear. The Empire had been decisively defeated. Earth had stood firm, using every ounce of creativity, technology, and willpower to turn the tide. The pride of the Empire had been destroyed, and the remaining Imperial forces were in retreat. For the first time since the war began, humanity had claimed a resounding victory. But General Roberts knew this was only the beginning. The battle for Earth had been won, but the war for the future of humanity had only just begun. As the dust settled, Earth's leaders began to turn their thoughts to the stars once again. The Empire had fallen, but the galaxy was vast, and there were still many worlds to discover, many questions to answer, and new challenges to face. For the first time in human history, Earth had stood as an equal among the stars. The fight for survival had forged humanity into something greater than it had ever been. The Empire had been defeated, but the journey of humanity had just begun. What lay ahead would be written in the stars, and this time, humanity would write its own story.